I wore this last video. Maybe I should change. I'm gonna change. Hey! Today, we're gonna be talking about King of Gluttony. Okay? In the King of Envy video that I did, I kept saying that it was a review. It's not a review. I'm literally just talking about the book and explaining the plot and the story and the characters, and that's exactly what we're gonna do today. Also, I'm using the microphone on my wired headphones because in the last video I felt like I wasn't talking loud enough, so we have a microphone right now, and I'm thinking about maybe getting like an actual like recording microphone, but I feel like, I don't know, I feel like we need to get this channel somewhere before we can upgrade to that level. Also, I was talking very slowly in the last video, and I feel like now we gotta wrap this up. Also, I feel like I was like talking very slowly and stuff because I wasn't comfortable on camera. Now this is because that was the first ever like video that I ever YouTube video that I ever took. So now I feel a bit more comfortable in front of the camera, and yeah, let's just get this show on the road. Actually, I just watched that video back and you can barely hear what I'm saying. I sound really like tinny, but whatever. Now I'm just gonna like go with the flow a little bit more. I'm also not gonna do like an introduction of the characters because I felt like it was just like really unnecessary and it just made the video much longer than it needed to be. Okay, so in this book, the main characters are Maya Singh and Sebastian Laurent. Okay, don't know if I'm saying his last name correctly. I can't pronounce things. But basically their whole spiel is that Maya's family, they own like a frozen food company that's called Sing Foods, and Sebastian Laurent's family, they have like a chain of like, they own a bunch of restaurants, and both their families are good friends. Okay, forced proximity, yes. Also, I'm gonna give you a little bit of background information before we like deep dive into the book. Okay,
I'm also not going to do like an introduction of the characters because I felt like it was just like really unnecessary and just made the video much longer than it needed to be.
so Maya and Sebastian, they've known each other since birth.
His birth.
And they have been rivals like since they were like 3 years old. They went to the same boarding school in Switzerland, and they're both really smart and really competitive, and they were always trying to like one up each other, you know? And they were always around each other growing up because their families are really good friends. Okay, but now we're gonna go into the storyline. Okay, so we start off the book with Maya on the phone with the communications director of Sing Foods, and he's freaking the fuck out because there was a listeria outbreak in one of their products, and Maya is like, just like pull it off the shelves, like we can't be selling this shit. And the frozen food was lasagna, and you gotta remember that later. You gotta remember that, okay? Okay, then she hangs up and she has like a bottle of laxatives because the Laurents are coming over for dinner, because she's at her parents' house and the Laurents are coming over for dinner, and she's gonna put laxatives in Sebastian's food. You gotta remember the laxatives, they'll come back later. The foreshadowing in like the first couple chapters is so funny. But before she can do anything with the laxatives, the housekeeper, her name is Daya or something. I don't know how to pronounce her name. I'm so sorry. But she comes over and she's like, give me the bottle, girl. And she's like, okay, fine. Then she gets ready for dinner, and she's in like a glass enclosed room in her parents' house and is like reading emails. And then Sebastian comes in the room and they're just kind of like flirting, like she's arguing, he's flirting, you know, that kind of thing. And then they're just kind of talking about like the listeria outbreak, and he's like, yeah, it's a good idea to pull things off the shelves. Like, that's what I would have done. And by the way, they hate each other, okay? They do not get along. Then he is about to leave, but before he does, he tosses her like a chocolate like bonbon or something and leaves the room because Maya has this tendency of eating like sweets when she's really stressed, and he knows that. Okay, then the dinner starts, and there's Maya, her parents, her younger sister Nia, her husband Sebastian, and his parents. Okay, so Maya's father and Sebastian's father, they're really close friends. Okay, so at this dinner, they're like, hey guys, we have some news. And they announced to the table that Sing Foods and Laurent Restaurant Group, they're going to be doing a collab of like fancy frozen foods that you can buy from the supermarket. And Sebastian's dad says that they have like a 9-month window to launch this product because Sing Foods has like their biggest competitor is Whitaker Farms, and they're also planning on doing this kind of thing. So they're like, okay, we need to announce this before he does, and we need to give the product out before he can. And like nobody at the table is like arguing about it except for Maya and Sebastian, and like this doesn't make sense, like this would never work, stuff like that. So they're just not happy, and they're even less happy when their fathers tell them, you guys are gonna be working together on this project, just the two of you. Okay, then we cut to like a Friday night, and Sebastian is in the vault kitchen, and the vault is a place that Xavier Castillo owns, and Xavier is from King of Sloth. Can you see that? It's right there. Oh yeah. So Sebastian is like working on a recipe for scallops, and Xavier is just like chilling there and just like talking to him, and Sebastian's like pretty upset because, well, first because he's been trying to master this recipe for a really long time, and also because of the collaboration news. And Xavier clocks him, and he's like, are you okay, dude? Does this have anything to do with like the collaboration news that you just told me about? And he's like, no. And then Xavier is like, well, you're acting really weird, and every time you act weird, it's because of Maya. And then their conversation gets cut off because Sebastian gets a call from the one and only Miss Maya, and she basically just told him like, I sent you a bunch of information about the collab, you can like go through it and stuff like that. And when he hangs up, Xavier has like a big old grin on his face. We also get a little bit of like insight how Sebastian thinks and his kind of mindset. And it's actually pretty sad because he's like projected as this like golden boy, like super smart, he's handsome, he's funny, like just like checks all the boxes, right? And he never really had to work hard for anything because like he got into like the best boarding schools, and he's like really smart, and everything was just kind of handed to him. And because of that, he kind of feels like he has no purpose in life. Sebastian really wants to be a chef, but his dad wants him to be in the business world and take his place when he retires. And the last time that Sebastian was in charge of a working kitchen, it did not end well, because I'm pretty sure it was King of Greed, he was in charge of a kitchen at a restaurant, and a man died. His name was Martin Welgrew, and he died of a peanut allergy. And after that, Sebastian like kind of like lost his mind, and it was so hard for him to even like walk past a kitchen without like spiraling. And it's really weird that this Martin guy died of a peanut allergy, because Sebastian checked so many times to see if there were any peanuts around, and there were none. Okay, then it's the same Friday night, and Maya, Sloan, and Ayana, they go to the Vault nightclub, to try to find a date for Maya because she's going to her cousin's wedding and she needs a date for that. So while they're there, Maya gets a text on the family group chat, and her little sister Priya just got engaged, and she's happy for her obviously, but she's a bit like upset that she didn't get that milestone before her because she's the oldest of 3 sisters, and so her youngest sister just got engaged, her other younger sister is married, and she just kind of feels like she's falling behind. And Sloane had texted Xavier before they went to the vault and said that they're trying to find Maya a date, and they get there, and after a little bit of scouting, Xavier comes and they're just kind of chatting, but the mood in Maya's eyes is ruined when Sebastian comes up right behind him. Then Xavier suggests she take Killian Catricus. I still don't know how to say his last name. I still don't. I'm so sorry. Then Xavier drags Sloane to do something, and Ayana goes to the bathroom. So that leaves Maya and Sebastian alone. And while they're alone and they hate each other, they start arguing, and Maya is basically just like telling him that he's super lazy and doesn't need to work for anything, and that she really needs to put in work while he just sits there basically. And he looks pretty unfazed by this, and he just says, "Look in your inbox," and then he dips. "There is competition between us. You're smart, I'll give you that, and sometimes you win over me, but I will always work harder than you and care more than you do and feel more than you do. You can collect as many accolades as you want, Sebastian, but they're as empty as everything else in your life. You want those wins so you can say you have them, but you don't actually give a shit about them. I can't be in competition with someone whose heart isn't in the race, so tell me, who is the real winner here?" And after her rant, he tells her to check in her inbox, and then he leaves. So she does look in her inbox, and lo and behold, Sebastian went over her email that she sent him maybe an hour ago, went over the whole thing, edited, and left notes. And then she feels like pretty guilty for her rant because he did put in the work. He did like do something. Then we cut to Sebastian's chapter and we see where he went, and he went to like a private bar at the vault, and he's thinking about Maya. This is in his inner monologue. God, I couldn't stand her. I couldn't stand how she argued with me every time we talked, or the way she cut through this bullshit and nailed me right where it fucking hurt. I couldn't stand knowing that no matter what I did or how much I won, she'd never see me as anything other than her nemesis. Most of all, I couldn't stand the way she haunted my thoughts for days, weeks, months, years. So we know that Sebastian clearly has a thing for Maya, or like it's like confirmed now. Then Ayana comes to the private bar, and she said that Maya was busy talking to some guy, and Sloane and Xavier were scheming something, and she wanted to keep him company in this sad drinking session of his. So Sebastian asks Ayana what Maya was doing, because Ayana said that she was busy, and Ayana says that she was talking to one of Xavier's old friends because he couldn't get a hold of Killian, so he just set her up with one of his old friends. And then Sebastian is like, that's not a great idea because like the people in Xavier's past aren't the best partners, you know? And Ayana is like, well, aren't you from his past? And he's like, yeah, but I'm different. And then Ayana is like, oh, well, it's just for a party, and Sebastian's old friends are really good with parties. And Sebastian's like, oh, well, that's still not a good idea. And then Ayana is like, well, why don't you just take her? Ugh! I love Ayana down. I love her so much. And then Sebastian is like really defensive and is like, no, I don't want to take her. But he thinks about it. He definitely thinks about it. So then Vuk comes, which is Ayana's fiance, and he's like really scary, and he thinks that Sebastian's hitting on her, but he's not. Sebastian and I were just chatting, Ayana said. Vuk signed something in American Sign Language. Oh, don't worry, she assured him. He's way too focused on Maya to think about anyone else. I stiffened. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. You just talk about her a lot. I don't. Other people bring her up first. Weren't you the one who asked what she was doing? The heat creeping across my face wasn't a blush. It was the alcohol. Clearly. Clearly the alcohol, right? Then Sebastian leaves the private bar and is gonna leave, so he's trying to find Xavier to say just bye. But instead of finding Xavier, he finds Maya, and she is talking to some guy. And Sebastian goes up to them and basically just talks until that until that guy leaves. And then Maya and Sebastian just kind of bicker a little bit until Maya actually apologizes for what she said about him earlier. And she said that she just had a really bad week and like put it out on him. And Sebastian's a little bit like shocked that she just apologized, but accepts her apology without giving her like any shit about it, and then he leaves. Okay, now it's the Monday after we left, and Sebastian is in a meeting. He's the CMO of Laurent Restaurant Group, and he's like not paying attention whatsoever. And then his dad is like, "Oh, Sebastian, like, what do you think of what we're just talking about?" So he like quickly reads off the PowerPoint and gives like his opinion, his idea, basically. And then after the meeting, Sebastian's dad is like, "Hey, you need to stop wasting your time in these kitchens, and if you want a future, you better start like taking the business side seriously." And Sebastian is not happy about this and storms out. Okay, then Sebastian and Maya, they have their first meeting about the collaboration. And of all places, they decide to go to the Valhalla library. So I have this like book that I write down my thoughts when I'm reading, and literally the first note that I wrote is not the fucking library. So the Valhalla library is very infamous about being freaky in the King of Sin series. I'm pretty sure every couple has done something in that goddamn library. Ew, I hate it. And they're just like working and they're like quietly arguing in the library, like whisper arguing. And then Maya says that she needs to go because she's meeting someone downtown. And Sebastian asks if she's meeting Killian, and she says no. Then she starts getting kind of like worked up about the timeline that they have, because they only have like 9 months, right? And she's like stressed out and worked up. And he puts, because they're like sitting across from each other, and he reaches out and puts his hand around her wrist. And the thing is, they don't pull back immediately. And Sebastian is like shocked that what he just did. So he's like, "Oh, are you going on another date that your mom set you up with?" And then she's like, "Okay." And then she pulls away. And she's like, "Yeah, actually no, I'm meeting with Vivian, who is planning her birthday party, because Vivian is like a party planner. She's from King of Wrath. Love her down." And she also tells him that he's not invited to her birthday party, and which is like kind of weird because they always invite each other to their birthdays to like one up each other. Then the librarian tells him to shut the fuck up, and then they leave. We do a 3-week time jump, and Maya is on a date with a guy that her mom set her up with, and it's going great until like a server comes and just like asks how their food is, and it's none other than Sebastian. And it had slipped Maya's mind that the Laurents owned the restaurant that they were having this date at. They pretend they don't know each other, and then Sebastian leaves their table but does not leave the restaurant. And they finish their food, and a server comes with a slice of chocolate cake, and they're like, "Did you get the wrong table? We did not order this." And then the waiter's like, "Oh, it's on the house." And is anybody shocked what I'm about to say? Sebastian did it. Okay, of course he did. Then like a few days later, Maya and Sebastian are having another meeting, and they're talking about this guy named Derek, who is a like celebrity chef who will be like making the recipes for their food launch. And they were talking about how, because they just announced that this Derek guy would be making the food, and they were talking about the reviews and how mostly everybody was pretty happy with Derek, but a few weren't. And one of them being Hollis Miller, which is like a food critic, and he's notorious for hating on everybody and everything, and for that reason I thought of him as the Swiftologist. And if you know, you know, but if you don't, that's perfectly fine. Mr. Perfectly Fine. I hate myself. Oh my god. And Sebastian is gonna leave, and he says that he needs to go to Pittsburgh because they have a new restaurant opening there and he needs to finalize some things. And that clicks something in Maya's brain, and she's like, oh, I need to go. I have a doctor's appointment. I'm late. Bye. So she leaves, but she lied to him, and she's not actually going to a doctor's appointment. She's going to Pittsburgh because she had a theory that the listeria outbreak that was like a few weeks ago might have come from the Pittsburgh factory, like manufacturing factory that they have for Sing Foods. And that just kind of like clicked in her brain. Then a week after they announced that they would be working with this Derek guy, he called Sebastian and he's like, hey, I'm sorry I can't do the thing because I'm going to rehab because I just got my 3rd DUI. And Sebastian's like, oh fuck, okay, awesome, bye. So he hangs up and he tells Maya that they need to have an emergency meeting, and they do, and he tells her that Derek can't do it. And she's kind of freaking out. They're both kind of freaking out until she has a genius thought. She's like, hey, you're a chef. Why can't you just do it? And he's like really scared by this because he just keeps thinking about the last time he was in charge of a kitchen and how that guy died. But he's scared, but he ends up agreeing to it. So Sebastian and his father have a meeting, and he tells his dad that he's going to be in charge of making the food now. And his father isn't exactly happy about it, but agrees to it. And he even says that if the launch goes great, then he might revisit the idea of him dropping out of the business world and becoming a chef. This is Sebastian talking to his dad. You said we'll revisit what my future looks like if I pull this launch off. I want that in writing with the following amendment. If I succeed, I will transition from CMO of the Laurent Restaurant Group to a full-time chef at a restaurant of my choosing. I also want the contract to outline our terms, your criteria for success, and a transition timeline. Send it to me and I'll have my lawyers review it. And his father agrees to this. We skip to Halloween Eve, and Sebastian and Maya are in their shared office and are brainstorming ideas. They're both exhausted and really tired, and Sebastian actually ends up falling asleep and has a really bad nightmare about Martin and the fact that the last time he was in charge of the kitchen, a man died. And he's like sweating and like hyperventilating, and then Maya wakes him up and is like, are you okay? Like, maybe we should go home and get some rest. And he's like, no, we need to finish this. Like, let's just finish this off. Then he changed the subject and asks her what she did over the weekend. And she just tells him that she went to a few parties with her friends and went to like a pop-up in Brooklyn with her friends. And that wakes her up, and she's like, oh my god, what about we do the launch as like a pop-up restaurant? And they actually ended up not going home that night, and they stayed up all night bouncing off each other's ideas. We didn't go home that night. We stayed in the office where we spent hours bouncing off each other's ideas and creating a plan for the pop-up. The project finally felt like fun instead of a chore, and I could have kept going forever had my body not eventually rebelled. 1 minute, we were back on the yoga mats to take a break, just a quick one to stretch our limbs. The next, my eyes were drifting closed, and Maya's arm was draped around my waist and my leg was ... I yawned. I tried to finish my last thought about my leg, or was it about our guest list? Maybe it was something about Maya's perfume, which was even nicer up close. It was light and sweet, and the warmth of her body kept the aggressive air conditioning at bay. Lying next to her was kind of like being wrapped in a cozy floral-scented blanket, and this time, when I sank in the depths of sleep again, I didn't have a nightmare. Not even close. Then it's the next morning, and they wake up to a scream from Maya's grandmother, and they're still in the office, by the way. And yeah, she comes in and she tells them really casual that it's inappropriate to fornicate at work, which they tell her that they did not do that, and they're really embarrassed. And her grandma is not mad, she's like low-key just making fun of them, and then she leaves. And then they leave too, and it's like really awkward. Then we skip to Maya at Vivian's house because they're planning her birthday party when she gets a text from Sebastian that said that he'll see her soon and that he's gonna win. So they ended up going with the pop-up restaurant idea, and Maya found a place that she wanted to have the pop-up at, and Sebastian had found a place that he wanted to have the pop-up at, and they're, I guess, competing which one they end up choosing. And the see her soon text is because they're going to Maya's choice first, and it's in Vermont. Then she says bye to Vivian, and she goes into the parking like thing, and Sebastian's there behind the wheel with all her stuff in the back, and they're gonna have a road trip to Vermont. And if you're wondering how he got her stuff, the housekeeper gave him all of her shit. And during the drive, Sebastian asks like what the real reason why she left their meeting back in October. It's like November now, and she's like doesn't really want to say about her Pittsburgh theory, but actually ends up telling him. And she tells him that she thinks that they were sabotaged by an employee that recently got fired, and he supports her theory. And then they just kind of hang around in the car, you know, whatever, and then they're almost to Vermont, but the weather is really bad and so is the traffic, so they decide to take a shortcut and they go into like the woods, but they end up getting stuck. The car gets stuck in the goddamn woods, and they argue a little bit about what they should do. And then Sebastian gets out of the car and comes back and says that the car's fine, but they won't be able to do anything until morning. And it's like raining really heavily, so when he went outside to check and came back out like inside, he was like really wet. And Maya is like, okay, like you need to get some other clothes, because if you're gonna stay in like wet clothes while it's really cold outside, you're gonna catch like hypothermia or something. So he goes back outside and grabs his like duffel bag with his clothes. Then he changes his clothes and gives her a sweater to sleep in. And then they go to sleep. The next morning, she wakes up in the back seat of the car, which is weird because she fell asleep in the front seat. She doesn't really know how she got there, but Sebastian is not in the car, and she's a bit worried, so she goes outside and she calls and calls for him with no answer. And she starts thinking like, oh my god, he got eaten by wolves, or like an axe murderer came to fucking chop him up. But then he comes up behind her and is like, oh, sorry, I just had to pee, like. Then they check up on the car, and it would be pretty impossible to get the car unstuck, just the two of them. And they needed to get help, but the cell towers weren't working because of the storm, so they decide to try to walk to the main road and try to get help. Then they've been walking for like hours at this point, and Maya's like, her feet start to hurt a lot because she's not wearing good walking shoe attire. And they check her ankles and they're all like raw and bloody and gross, and she's like limping. So Sebastian's like, okay, take off her shoes, and she's like, well, I'm not gonna walk barefoot. And he's like, no, I'm gonna carry you. And he carries her. He carries her, and he's also holding his duffel bag. Ooh! Then they walk a bit more and they realize that they are completely lost, and they decide to set up camp before it gets too dark. So Maya goes out, finds something for them to sleep on, and Sebastian tries to make a fire. Then they talk a little bit before going to bed, and they like cuddle for body warmth, obviously. This is Maya's POV. I was warmer with him around me, and I liked how his body acted as a shield against the night. He felt safe, and that was something I desperately needed right now. The combination of heat, hunger, and exhaustion pulled me under, and I gradually drifted into a hazy half-sleep. I thought I heard him speak for a moment, but I was so far gone it might have been a dream. For what it's worth, Sebastian's voice was barely audible beneath the crackle of the fire. If I could choose someone to spend my last hours with, I'd choose you. Then Sebastian wakes up to another scream, and it's Maya this time. And they wake up, and there's a snake on Maya's leg. She hates snakes, and they don't know if the snake is venomous or not. But Sebastian's like, I need to protect my woman. She's not my woman yet, but she's about to be. So he picks up a stick and like pokes the snake off of her, and then the snake just like skittles wrong. Well, that was not English. The snake like goes away. Skittles are wrong. What? Then he like comforts her because she's like really fucking hates snakes, and they almost kiss. This is Sebastian's POV. I could deal with snakes and getting stranded in the woods. I could not deal with her rawness, not like this. She barely let her guard down around me, and without that shield to protect me, I feared I would lose myself in something I'd sworn I'd never revisit. Maya's fingers clutched on the front of my sweater. Her breathing was unsteady, but her face softened as the air shifted around us. I swallowed, my throat dry. The forests fell away, and suddenly all I could focus on was her. Her eyes, her skin, her lips, how her pulse fluttered at the base of her throat, and how badly I wanted to press my mouth on that exact spot so I could feel whether she craved my touch as much as I did hers. I lowered my head, my breath hitched, and she tilted her chin up a fraction of an inch, just enough for me to. Then they get interrupted by some guy, and they are like, oh my god, we're gonna die, this is an axe murderer, he's gonna come and kill us. But it's not an axe murderer, it's just some guy with two kids, like two teenagers behind him. And he's like, hey guys, are you okay? We heard a scream. And they're like, oh, no, we're just lost, but we're fine. And this guy is super sweet and tells them, like, the directions that they should go to the main road. And the teenagers that he had, they had, like, portable chargers, and they gave Sebastian and my other portable chargers to just get enough battery so they could call, like, a friend of a friend's of Sebastian's to get the car unstuck. Then said friend of a friend comes and gets the car out of the mud, and they leave to go to the venue. Then they get to the place, they shower, eat, you know, whatever, and then they have like a tour with the coordinator, and the coordinator leaves for a second to take a call and leaves them both to look at the place. And they both haven't talked about their almost kiss, and it's a little bit awkward. This is Maya's point of view. So far, we'd avoided talking about what happened before Bert showed up. Bert is the guy that helped them. My adrenaline had been running so high that the past few hours passed in a blur. But now that my nerves had calmed down and we were alone again, my blood thummeted. He had been about to kiss me. I was sure of it. And I was also sure that I wanted him to. And out of everything that happened on this trip, that freaked me out the most. Then the lady comes back and she asks what they think. And they say that they'll have their answer in like 2 weeks about. And the lady is like, okay, we might not have 2 weeks because there's a lot of people that want this venue at that exact weekend. And Sebastian is like, oh, okay, we'll take it. What? Mind you, they didn't even look at the place that Sebastian wanted. And Maya is like, okay, she's thankful that she won and she got the place that she wanted, but she's a bit like surprised that he gave in so easily. Then they leave and they get back to New York, and Maya is just like alone in her apartment, and she thinks that Sebastian might have canceled the North Carolina trip because his place was in North Carolina. and she thought that he maybe canceled that trip because he just didn't want to travel with her. Then we skip a few days, and Maya's on another date with a different guy, and he's really good on paper, like he has a nice job and stuff, but he believes in like the traditional family, like the guy, like the man of the house goes out, works, comes home, the woman like is home, takes care of the children, cooks, cleans, and that stuff. And Maya's really against that, so she's just kind of tearing him apart. And this guy has like a complete bitch fit and storms out of the restaurant. And Maya's completely fine with it. And then a server comes to like collect their plates, leaves, comes back with a slice of chocolate cake on the house again because they were at the same restaurant as before. Then we find out that Sebastian canceled the North Carolina trip because he was scared that if they'd spend more alone time together, he might do something that he might regret. And we also get to know that he always, like every day, he always gets like a list of VIPs that are gonna be eating at the restaurants. And he saw that Maya was going to the restaurant that night, and he didn't actually show up, but he told the servers to keep an eye on her, and if she looked miserable, to give her the cake. Then 2 days later, Maya's parents call her to their house for lunch, and her mom basically tells her that the guy that she went on a date with 2 days ago was really upset, and his mom called her and was just like, oh, you don't know how to raise your daughter, like she was so disrespectful. And her mom is like really taken aback by this, and she tells Maya that if she doesn't get engaged by next November, so in a year, then she'll like their parents will have to get her an arranged marriage. Then we skip to Maya's birthday party, and Sebastian is talking to the other guys in the King of Sin series until Maya's grandmother like pulls him aside and is like, hey, I lost an earring in that room over there, can you like find it for me? And he's like, yeah, okay, sure. So he goes into the room and there's no earring, but there is Maya in there. Then he asks if she's like nervous about the event that is happening, and she says no, but he knows that she's lying because she has like chocolate on the corner of her mouth. And he's like, oh, liar. And then he like wipes it with his thumb. Stop it! Then she kind of changes the subject and asks if he's stalking her because he's crashed like 2 of her dates and why he's so fascinated with her dating life. And he responds that he simply just told the staff to cheer her up if she looked miserable and that he finds joy in her discomfort. And to that, she responds with like, oh, you're gonna be super thrilled about what I'm about to say. My parents aren't giving me an arranged marriage if I don't get engaged in a year. And he acts cool about it and he's like, oh, okay. But like in the inside, he's like shocked by this. Then she changes the subject again and she's like, what did you give me for my birthday? Because they have this like kind of tradition that they always get each other like really good gifts to, again, one up each other. And bro has like a little box in his pocket, but he says like, oh, I just got you like a $20,000 gift card to this store. First of all, $20,000 gift card, insane. But like, and she's like a bit like disappointed by this, that it's only a gift card, you know, but doesn't like show it much. Then they just kind of stay silent, just kind of bathe in the tension before Vivian comes and like whisked Maya away to her birthday party. Then we do a 3-month time jump to, it's like early February, and Sebastian is at the vault kitchen with Xavier, and he gets a phone call from the hospital, and they tell him that his mom got into a car accident. So he leaves the vault, goes straight to the hospital, and finds his mom. And his mom is like really casual about it. It's like, yeah, like I just went to brunch and I had a few drinks and I just didn't know where I was looking. And she's been drinking, like day drinking a lot recently because her sister just recently died and she was kind of like drinking her way through that. And then she's like, oh, like, are you thinking about Prague? And Sebastian is like, ugh, like he was like an alcoholic a few years ago when Martin Welger died, when he was in charge of the kitchen. And after that, he went to Europe and basically just drank so much, and it did not end well. Then he leaves the hospital and he like unconsciously walks to Sing Food headquarters and just kind of stays there for the rest of the day. Like no meeting with Maya or anything, he just kind of stays there. And when everybody leaves, like nobody's in there anymore, he goes into Maya's office and puts the jewelry box that he was going to give her for her birthday. He puts it in one of her desk drawers and then he leaves. Then a few days later, Maya and Sebastian are supposed to have a meeting, and Maya goes into her office right on time and is expecting to see Sebastian there super smug and early, but he isn't there. And he left her a note that basically said like, oh, I had to do this thing, we just have to reschedule. And by the way, they haven't seen each other in person since Maya's birthday in November, and it's February. And she thinks that he's like purposely avoiding her. Then she works for a little bit until she gets hungry, and she thinks that she might want to go to that ramen place that he had suggested like last year. And she goes into one of her desk drawers to get her emergency stack of bills because like you never know if some places are cash only. And in that drawer she finds the little jewelry box. There's no note, but she knows exactly who it's from. Then we skip a few days and now it's Valentine's Day, and Maya is on a second date with this guy named Zach. And like it's going really well, and then she starts talking about the wedding, that her cousin's wedding that she's going to soon. And he's like, oh, like, do you have a date to this wedding? And she says no, and then she invites him to be her date at this wedding. Second date, by the way. And then on this date she really starts thinking about like Sebastian a lot. Then she excused herself to go to the bathroom, and she flags down like a waiter or just like someone who works there to see if she can use like one of the private bathrooms, like employee only bathrooms or something, because the line to the public bathroom is really long and she really needs to go. And the waiter lets her to this private bathroom and she uses it, and she gets out of the bathroom and she's like halfway through the hallway when someone pins her to the fucking wall. What? And guess who it was? Fucking Sebastian. What? And their conversation is very like tension filled. Like she's a little tipsy. He knows what he's doing. He's wearing the necklace that he got, and it's a locket, and inside the locket is a picture of her when she won a debate, and it's like one of her proudest moments. And she thought that there would never be a photo of it because nobody took one, but Sebastian took the photo. Okay, he took the photo, didn't let her know, and it's like the only photo of this in existence. So she asks like, yeah, like I found this in my desk, like any idea who got it? And he's like, no, I have no idea. And they're like very close to each other. Like they're whispering like against each other. It's really weird. And he gets his hand off her necklace and like puts it on her waist. And then they have like a little peck. It's described as a suggestion of a kiss rather than an actual one. And then Sebastian asks like what changed. And Maya is a bit like confused by that statement and is like, what do you mean? But before he could answer, a bartender burst through the door and is like, oh, I'm sorry, boss, what the fuck? And goes to the bathroom. Bruh. And when I tell you, when I was reading this part in this book, I was so fucking pissed. I was so pissed. I actually wanted to like rip the page out of the book. I was so upset. So, and when the bartender gets there and like goes to the bathroom, Maya like looks away for a second, and when she looks back, Sebastian is gone. He disappeared. Then like a week later, they have a meeting, and they actually both show up this time. And there's a lot of like awkward silence until she breaks it and just like, what the fuck? What happened at the bar last week? Like, what the fuck? And then they just like end up arguing. This is Sebastian's point of view. Maya's face tightened. We're too grown to be playing these games, Sebastian. You and I both know. She stopped, her cheeks flushing again. You know what? Never mind. If you want to continue this hot and cold, act like a child, that's fine. But don't expect me to indulge you anymore. I barked out aloud. That's rich coming from you. What the hell is that supposed to mean? It means that you keep going on these dates with these inspid men, pretending you give a shit about any of them when you know deep down that you don't. You accuse me of blowing hot and cold, fine, but at least I'm not the one stringing people along because I'm afraid of falling behind in some invisible race that I never signed up to be in the first place. You can use your parents' ultimatum as an excuse, but you're fooling yourself long before that. Then he brings up Zach and is like, you really think that guy's like you're like a good match? And she says, yeah, he is, and I'm bringing him to the wedding. And Sebastian gets like really jealous by this, and then she's like, okay, well, who are you bringing? And he's like, oh, well, nobody you know. Ooh! Then she's like calling him like arrogant and that he thinks he knows her so well. And then he responds with, you hate yes men, so you want someone who will support you and who will also call you out on your bullshit and inevitably arise. You need someone who's not afraid of your ambition and who won't be intimidated by your success. Their intellectual curiosity shouldn't match yours, and they need to hold their own in a conversation because you fucking love to argue. But you don't respect anyone who doesn't give you as good as they get. You're not just looking for a partner, you're looking for an equal. But the reason your search has failed so far is because you have no equals. The best you can hope for is someone who can keep up with you, and I regret to inform you that Zach and the bleached blonde is not it, no matter how much you try to convince yourself he is. And the thing is, everything he said is completely right, and Maya knows that, and she can't really muster up a response except, you know what, sometimes I really hate you. And he just says, I know, and then they leave. Like, oh my god. Guys, my parents are fighting, no! And after the meeting, Sebastian goes to Valhalla to eat dinner, and he actually sees Dante from King of Wrath, and he joins, and then Sebastian starts like grilling him and is like, you know, like, you and Vivian had an arranged marriage, how did you go from like hating each other's guts to falling in love and having a kid? And Dante responds that like it didn't happen overnight, and he had to accept the fact that maybe he didn't hate her, and he also had to admit to her that he loved her. And then Sebastian asks like, what would you have done if she didn't feel the same towards you? And he's like, well, that's really fucked up, but I would probably try to change her mind. And that really gets his gears going, you know? Now it's the day of Maya's cousin's wedding, and they're at the grand reception, and Maya and Sebastian literally have not talked or seen each other since their fight a few weeks ago. And, you know, Sebastian is like chilling, and then Maya's grandmother comes up to him again And he's like, hey, I lost one of my rings on the dance floor. Can you maybe like find it for me? And Sebastian like has a feeling that there is no piece of jewelry, and she's just trying to set him up with Maya. But he does it anyway. He goes on the dance floor and looks for Maya, and he finds her. She's dancing with her sisters, and he comes up to them, and both of her sisters like make some excuse to leave, leaving them both alone. Then they talk for a little bit, and they seem to have forgotten their argument they had last week. And then he asks like where Zach is, and she said that she didn't end up bringing him. And then she asks where his date is, and he just says that, yeah, I just didn't end up bringing her. Then he asks her to dance, and she accepts. This is Sebastian's POV. I just realized this is our first ever dance together, she said. That's not true. Her brow creased. Senior year of boarding school, I said. Our Model UN club went to Spain for a competition. We had a bonfire on the beach afterward, and we got so drunk we stole the speakers from some truck in the parking lot and blasted old 90s songs that entire night. When I finished, a reminiscing smile glanced her lips. I almost forgot about that. Andy Kim nearly drowned after Neville Grafton threw up on him in the middle of the Backstreet Boys number and ran into the ocean to clean himself. He was mortified. I think he had a crush on you. Who? Andy or Neville? Both. I didn't blame them. She was magnificent. Then he apologizes for last week and their argument, and she accepts it, and then she asks like why he didn't bring a date, and he says that she wasn't the one he wanted to be with. And then she's like, oh, well, then who did you want to be with? And he's like, well, that's not how things work. One question per person. And then he asks why she didn't end up bringing Zach. And she said that he couldn't make it because of work. This is her inner monologue. But in the end, I chickened out and canceled, saying it was too late for me to add a +1. I would have brought him mainly just to spite Sebastian, and that wasn't fair. I knew deep down he was just a placeholder, because when I pictured myself dancing with someone, I didn't see Zach, Nikhil, or any of the dozens of men I've been on dates with. I saw dark hair and amber eyes, tan skin, and an infuriating smirk. I heard the traces of a French accent and a familiar cadence of a lazy drawl. Something else felt wrong, like I was trying to squeeze in shoes that were 2 sizes too small. And that scared the crap out of me, because I was not supposed to feel this way about Sebastian Laurent. I couldn't. It was against my natural order of things. Yeah, so she tells him that Zach just couldn't make it because of work, and he knows that she's lying, and she's like, oh, I need some air. And the wedding is at like a hotel, and in the garden of the hotel there's like a big tent thing, and that's where like the reception is. So when she says like I need some air, she just goes out of the tent into like the garden, and then he follows her out in the gardens. And then in the garden she has another like rant about how he thinks he knows her so well, and why he didn't answer her question about why he didn't bring anyone. And before he could answer, Maya is like, and don't say like you were too scared or that she was too easy and you got bored. Like, she's literally just like Peter Griffin in that one meme, like...
Because this is America, Lois. Men have always run things, and there have never been any problems whatsoever. And don't say the economy, or Iraq, or income inequality, or racism, or Brett Kavanaugh, or air pollution, or Vietnam, or slavery, or Watergate, or capitalism, or Me Too, or homelessness, or police brutality, or homophobia, or Monica Lewinsky, or school shootings, or Native American genocide, or Fox News, or Tim Allen, or climate change.
And then she asks, like, oh, like, how long did you string that poor girl along just for you to decide that she wasn't good enough? And he's completely silent, like, doesn't stop her. And then she's like, well, does she know about what happened on Valentine's Day? Like, does she know anything about that? And then he just, like, explodes. And then he's like, she doesn't know about Valentine's Day. I didn't string her along. I didn't do any of that because she doesn't exist. And then she's like, why did you lie? Like, why did you say you had a date when you didn't? And then he says, in his words, for someone so smart, you can be so goddamn clueless. And then he's like, well, you said that you were bringing a date, and I just couldn't bear the thought of you being with some guy, so I lied. And then she's like, well, that doesn't make sense because you hate me. And then he laughs, and he said, I never hated you, Sal. Not even once. Not ever. And then he says, if I hated you, I wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't. He stopped. I never hated you, he repeated. Not even after what happened. After what happened? And then she's a bit confused, and then he asks, like, do you want me to stay or do you want me to go? And she says stay. And right then he fucking kisses her. And this is like a real thing. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like yeah. It's yeah. Sebastian Laurent kissed me like a man starved, and I kissed him back. Also, look at how much I fucking lined up. Oh yeah. Also, I got better tabs. Do you like them? They have actually like raspberries on them, but they were close to strawberries. So, also, do you like my bookmark? I try to like, you know, I try to match the bookmark to the book, okay? And the kiss is like very intense, very hungry, but it gets interrupted again by Maya's little sister Priya. And she's like super drunk, didn't see anything happen, but she like makes her come back to the tent because they're gonna take pictures. And as Maya was leaving in a hurry, she dropped her dupada? I don't know how to say it. I'm very sorry. I looked it up. I watched the videos. I don't know if I'm saying it wrong. No, right. And I'm so sorry. But I tried. Dupada. I sincerely apologize. Don't cancel me, please. Okay, after about like an hour of taking photos later, Maya goes back to the hotel, and she hadn't seen Sebastian like literally anywhere. Yeah, so she gets to the hotel and she decides to take the stairs instead of the elevator because she didn't want like any of her family members to see her and maybe talk to her or anything. And she heard some of her like aunts and stuff talking, but when she went to the stairwell, their voices disappeared, but another voice entered the chat, y'all. It was fucking Sebastian. Eee! And he's holding her dupatta. I'm probably pronouncing it so wrong, and I'm so sorry. Honestly, this wouldn't be a video of mine if I didn't mispronounce something. So, and then their conversation is like a little bit freaky, but it's tame until it's not. They do it in the stairwell with so many of her family members a door away. Do you know how echoey a stairwell is? Holy shit. And after they do their business, they realize that they forgot to use protection, and she was on the pill, so they're like fine, but still. And once they realize, he's like, oh shit, I'm so sorry, like, I'm so sorry. And she's like, no, it's fine, like, we both forgot, bye. And she fucking bolts out of there. Oh my god. Now it's the next day, and mostly everybody has left, and everybody's there is just like close friends and family, because like most of the activities are done. And this is like an Indian wedding, so there's like an entire week of like activities in India, right? And that day's activity was to go on like a boat ride. And Sebastian wasn't supposed to be on the same boat as Maya, but he like sneaked in there so he could be on the same boat. And on the boat was Sebastian, Maya, her little sister Priya, her fiance, and some guy named Dev. So they get on the boat, and Sebastian is like sitting in front of Maya. Dev is on one side of, like, sitting next to her, and then Priya's on the other side of her. And Dev clearly has a thing for Maya and is like hitting on her the entire time. And Sebastian does not like that at all. And on this boat ride, like, Dev is flirting with Maya, and she's like flirting back. And then Sebastian's like really jealous, and he asks them both like what their favorite part of last night was, and Dev gives his like basic answer, and then Mai is like flustered and she's like, oh, I liked hanging out with my family. And he's like, yeah, I saw you and Priya talking in the gardens last night. Then the atmosphere changes and it's like heavy tension, and Dev is like picks up on it and is like, do you guys have like a thing? And they're like, no, we don't have a thing. And Maya's like, no, we don't have a thing, we never had a thing. And then Sebastian goes, never, huh? What? And then Dev is like, okay, well, if you don't have a thing, like, I can ask her out, right? And then Sebastian's like, yeah, of course you can, but if you do, I'll kill you. What? And then Sebastian and Maya argue, flirting again, and their argument gets kind of heated, and they like half rise from their seats, and the oarsman is like, guys, you need to sit down, like sit your asses down, but they don't listen. And it gets to the point, because if you've ever been on these kind of boats before, like if you aren't sitting, you fall, right? So that's exactly what happened. They raise and they fucking fall right into the water, everybody going down with them. Then Sebastian and Maya go back to the hotel to dry off, and they go into Maya's room to talk things through. And then Sebastian asks like if she regretted last night, and she doesn't give him like a straight answer, but he says, I don't, and if I could rewind time and spend the night with anyone in the world, I'd still choose you every time. And then she says, we're always fighting, always competing. We can't even enjoy a boat ride without it ending in disaster. I don't mind a little disaster, it keeps things interesting. I know you're scared, but we owe each other the truth, the real truth. So this is me laying all my cards on the table. I want to be with you. Through every season, every interaction of a relationship, it's always been you. I'm tired of pretending it's not. And you're right, we're always fighting and competing, but that's why I like you. You challenge me in a way no one else does, and you see me in a way no one else has. Sometimes you drive me up the wall, but you're never boring. You are my match in every way. You make me feel alive, none more so than last night. It meant something to me, and I think it might have meant something to you too. So the question is whether you feel the same. And Maya is like really like shocked by his love confession, and she just like panics and she's like, I don't know, like, oh. And then he says, right, I guess I have my answer. I should have known. I thought that after the past few months, it's been so long since the letter, I thought that things might have changed, but of course they haven't. It was my fault for thinking otherwise. What letter? This part actually invoked the biggest crash out I've had in a long time due to a book. Oh my god, I made a TikTok about it. This is my TikTok, if you can go on there and give it a little like. His face grew cold. You know, Maya, you're entitled to your feelings, he said quietly. But I was honest with you, and I thought you'd at least have the decency to not pretend you don't know what I'm talking about. I wanted to cry. I wanted to cry so fucking bad. Oh my god. And then he just leaves the room. He leaves the room. Oh my god. Then like a few hours later, she gets out of her room to have dinner with her family, and she asks Nia, her sister, like where Sebastian is, and she's like, oh, he didn't tell you? He went back to New York for like work emergency. And like Maya's like hurt by this, but she completely understands. Then she goes home back to New York, and she spends like an entire week trying to find this letter that Sebastian supposedly wrote her. And she's like looking through her entire apartment. She went to the post office to see if they maybe had like lost mail or something. And then she ends up going to her parents' house because she's like, okay, I have a lot of like old school stuff in there, maybe it's in there. And she goes to her parents' house to look for this letter, and she and the housekeeper Daya was looking with her, And in the second to last box of many, she finds a letter with her name on it in Sebastian's handwriting. And she found it in her like social studies folder, so it's weird that she didn't remember this letter. And then it's like 2 weeks after the wedding, and Sebastian went on an absolute fucking bender and went to some bar with Xavier and Killian, and he got like super duper drunk. He drank like an entire bottle of like whiskey or something. But he somehow managed to get home in one piece, and he drank like a lot of water and like sobered up a bit. Then his doorbell rings, and he's like, oh, it's probably like some fucking kids or something. But then the doorbell rings again, and there's knocking, and he's like, okay, fine, I gotta get these people off my lawn. Get out of my swamp! He opens the door, and it's none other than Maya, and she's wearing his sweater that he gave her in Vermont, and also has the locket necklace around her neck. And she has the letter. Ah! And she goes in, and she's like, when did you write this? And he's like, you know exactly when I wrote this. And he's like, is this some kind of joke? When she said that she literally had no idea of this letter's existence until like a couple days ago. And she says that he can literally ask the housekeeper because she was there when she found it. And he's like, I don't need to ask her because I know that you're lying because you wrote me back. What? But the thing is, she did not write him back. What the fuck? And he still had the letter that she wrote him back, and he gets it, and it's in her handwriting, it's her signature, and she's like, I've never seen this in my life. And he still thinks that she's lying, and it isn't until she literally swears on her family that she had no idea about this letter. And then she gives like a whole speech about like how she didn't give him an answer last week about like whether she wanted to be with him because she just thought it was maybe like lust and what had happened the night before, and that he didn't mean it. But after she saw this letter, she's like, it's not lust. And then she admits that she actually likes him and wants to be with him. I'm so happy right now. And he's like literally as still as a statue, and it's just like frozen. And she like reaches up and like kisses his jaw. And then she's like, do you want me to stay or do you want me to go? Which is like a fun little callback from the gardens. And he says that he wants her to stay. And then they like kiss for real, and then they make it official. Ah! And then they're like, she's like trying to like take his shirt off. And then she says, you're turning down sex for the time being. I want to do this a proper way. Courtship first, then sex. But I was flabbergasted. We've already had sex. That was before we started dating. Is that what we're doing? I don't remember you asking me to be your girlfriend. That's because you asked me to be your boyfriend first. There's no such thing. Really? Because you're the one who showed up at my house wearing my sweatshirt, and fine. We'll call it a tie. We asked each other to be official. And then they blissfully fall asleep. And then I'm gonna read to you his letter to her. Bro actually waited 14 years for her. 14. That's a teenager. 14 goddamn years. Oh my god. Dear Maya, it feels weird to write to you when our last written correspondence was in 5th grade. I won our school spelling bee after you got tripped up by a Cheroscurist. I don't know. I don't know what the word is. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong too. And you left me a note filled with quite a lot of choice of words of your own. I have to say, I've never seen someone use Truchten and rectum in such a creative sentence before. I wasn't the most gracious winner, so I suppose I deserved it. The note I wrote back wasn't very nice either. But 5th grade was a long time ago, and some things can only be expressed through ink on paper. I'm sitting alone in the library, where we spent countless nights arguing about the most mundane of topics, and the illusion of anonymity is what gives me the courage to write this letter. That, and the memory of you sitting right across from me. I think you'd laugh if you saw how nervous I am right now. I debated for months over whether I should tell you at all. It's terrifying to imagine how you might react, but we're about to graduate, and even though we'll be attending the same university, I have a feeling that if I don't say this now, I never will. So here's the truth. I love you. Fully, unexpectedly, and painfully. I've loved you in silence through the turbulence of the years, and in the margins of our rivalry. You're all I think about when I'm awake, and you're all I dream about when I'm not. It is agonizing. I tried to deny it because I'm supposed to hate you. You were the thorn on my side, the obstacle on my way to success. But you're the only person who's ever challenged me, and I didn't know how to handle it. I wasn't used to being bested, especially not by someone who was so happy to rub it in my face. Honestly, it pissed me off. But somewhere along the way, my feelings changed. I don't know when or how or why. I'm sure it doesn't matter. What matters is the very things I hated about you in the beginning are the things I love about you now. Your drive, your intelligence, your wit, which you've used against me many, many times. Your sense of humor and your audacity to be openly proud of your accomplishments. You don't shrink yourself to fit into the boxes other people built for you. And sometimes the sting from your thorns is the only thing reminding me that I'm still alive. Without you, my life would be an empty canvas, pristine in its perfection, but yearning for color to fill it. You see me as your rival, and part of me will always be that. I think we're both too proud to stop pretending in one way or another. It's a core part of our relationship, and I wouldn't want to change it. But I hope that when you read this, you'll also see me as something more. It's possible I may have imagined this significance of our shared moments to read too much into the glances between us. This type of love isn't something I have experience with, so like I said, it's terrifying to think about how you might react. However, I once read a quote that stuck with me. Risk must be taken because the greatest hazard of life is to risk nothing. The person who risks nothing, does nothing, has nothing, is nothing. Leo Buchaligia. So here I am, taking the biggest risk of my life to tell you that I love you. Part of me has always loved you, and part of me will always love you, no matter how you respond. If there's even the slightest chance that you feel the same, then every risk I took would have been worth it. Love, Sebastian. I want this tattooed on my back. But like, fucking 14 years for her. 14 years. And he thought that she didn't even like him back. Like, oh my god. Then, like, the following Saturday, they have their first, like, official date. And they're at a park, and they're sitting on a bench, and they're, like, about to kiss. When somebody calls Maya's name, and it's her aunt, who's, like, notorious for being, like, single and doesn't have a husband and no kids and stuff like that. And then she's like, oh, Maya, what are you doing here with Sebastian Laurent nonetheless? And he says, like, oh, we're just, like, doing research for our launch that's coming up soon. And she accepted that excuse and left. And she didn't seem to notice their little kiss earlier. Then they go to Sebastian's house and they cook dinner together. And he ends up telling her that, like, his deal that he made with his dad, and, like, if the launch goes well, then he might be able to be, like, a full-time chef, and she's super happy for him. But he also opened up to her and said that after the Martin Wellgrew peanut incident a couple years back, like, he couldn't walk past the kitchen without getting a panic attack, and that he was really nervous and had a lot of anxieties about transitioning into becoming a full-time chef. But she comforted him and said that he was gonna do amazing. And that kind of, like, that healed something in him, I guess. Then a few weeks pass and they're working at Maya's house until they're not, and they end up on the fucking kitchen table. And after that, they go in the shower, and then they say that they love each other. Eee! And it's, like, Sebastian's first time, like, actually saying that he loves her, like, openly, not in a letter. Eee, so cute. And now they're just kind of, like, dating in secret. Like, they don't want to tell their families yet, and they're planning to do it after the launch in June. And then we skip, and Maya is at a bowling alley with Vivian, Isabella, Alessandra, Sloane, and Ayana, so just all the girls from the King of Sin series. And she ends up telling them about that she's dating Sebastian, and low-key none of them are shocked by the news. And then they start talking about this ball that's coming up soon, and then Ayana says that she's really excited to go to this ball, and it's her first time, and it's Vuk's first time going there too. And then she's like, oh yeah, and Vuk says hi, and all the girls just kind of look at her, And she's like, okay, fine, he didn't say hi, I'm saying hi for him. Because if you've watched my King of Envy video, highly recommend. You know that Buck is not friendly at all, but whatever. And then they just all kind of like, and then Isabella is like, are you texting him on girls' night? How dare you? Like, jokingly. And then they just all kind of look at each other, and they've all been texting their mans on girls' night. And then Sloane is like, you know what, guys, fuck this, put all your phones in my purse, we're not gonna let these men distract us from our girls' night. And they all do it, and they have a great time at the bowling alley. It's the same night, and Sebastian, Dante, Kai, Dominic, Xavier, Vuck, and Killian are all at Killian's house, and they're playing poker. And Killian seems to be the only one actually playing the game, because they're all distracted by their phones and texting their girls. And then Killian is like really fed up with it, and he's like, okay, well, why don't we just like join the girls? And he's joking, but all the guys are like, okay, and they fucking leave to go into the bowling alley with the girls. What? Then the guys get there and they both play, and then Sebastian and Maya are like doing a little kiss, and somebody walks by, and it was Nia. It was Maya's little sister, and Nia is the type of person to literally tell their parents everything. She's like a goody two shoes, like nothing can get past her. Then Maya goes to talk to her, and she's like, please don't tell our parents, like please, 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 please. And Nia's like obviously a bit upset by this, that Maya's keeping this a secret, and she says like, okay, if you don't tell our parents soon, like I will. And Sebastian and Maya are just kind of talking about this, and they're pretty sure that she won't try to say anything, but they need to have like a lookout. Then it's the next week, and the Sings and the Laurents are having dinner at the Laurents' place. And Sebastian and Maya decide that they're gonna tell their parents and their families that night at dinner. And like everything's going great, like both their moms are talking about like their upcoming trip, like a spa trip to Switzerland, like everybody's chatting, having a good time. And then during dessert, Maya's dad asks Sebastian's dad like, oh, how are your meetings after the Valhalla tennis tournament the other day? And he's like, yeah, like it was fine, nothing crazy. And then Maya's dad is like, oh, that's weird, because you had a dinner with Charles Whitaker, aka Whitaker Farms, aka Sing Food's biggest competitor. And Sebastian's dad is like, it was literally nothing, it was just one dinner, like don't get so worked up about it. And Maya's dad is like super pissed off and is like you're a traitor, like I can't believe you did this to me, like you, like we might as well like not even be friends at this point, like oh my god. And then Maya's dad is like, okay, like all personal relationships end here, we end now, no communication between our families except for work purposes. And then the Sings leave. What the fuck? So they're obviously not gonna tell their parents that they're dating now, like what? Then it's like 2 weeks after that dinner, and their dads have not reconciled yet, which is like really sad. And their mothers had to like cancel the spa trip, which was really not great. And Sebastian and Maya were too scared to like meet up in person, so they only talked through like emails and texts and calls and stuff like that. Then it's days later, and Maya and Nia are talking at Priya's like wedding fitting, and Nia is like telling Maya that she needs to break up with Sebastian, and like because their fathers are fighting, and that means that she'll have to choose between her family and Sebastian. And Maya's like, no, I'm not gonna break up with him. And then Nia's like, okay, but are you willing to throw away your family for a relationship that you don't even know is gonna last? And Maya's actually like super pissed off about this, but doesn't go anywhere. And then weeks pass, and it's now the day of the launch. Like, everything was going great. They invited a bunch of like food journalists and critics and influencers, including Hollis Miller. And everything's going great. And Maya goes into the kitchen, and the kitchen is absolute chaos. And she's like trying to talk to Sebastian, and he's talking back. And then he like yells at some junior cook who works at the venue because he took the lasagna out too early. And then the food gets served, and everybody seems to be really enjoying it, including Hollis Miller, who literally hates everything and everyone. And then Maya goes back into the kitchen to check up on Sebastian, and like everything is going great until they hear a loud crash and followed by a scream. And they're like, what the fuck? And Maya goes out, and turns out one of the diners had like vomited, and a bunch of other people were like running to the bathroom to throw up. And then they called the paramedics, and the paramedics said that like it was food poisoning. And that was really weird because Sebastian is super duper cautious about food safety, especially after the Martin Welgrew incident. And the whole thing was just like really weird and kind of suspicious. And also, like, everybody got the food poisoning except for Maya, her father, and Hollis Miller. And the food poisoning came from the meat lasagna, and Maya, her dad, and Hollis Miller, they all had like the vegetarian option for the lasagna, so everybody had the meat lasagna and got sick. And Sebastian's like really upset about this, obviously, and it's like his worst nightmare coming true for the second time. Then it's like 5 days after the incident, and Sebastian is like at his house just like drinking, and then Maya comes over, and she just kind of tells him like, oh, like the line isn't selling well, like it's not going great. And Sebastian like opens up to her and says like the Prague incident, and told her that he went on a bender to Europe and ended up at a dive bar in Prague and got into a fight with a guy and like almost beat him to death. Like, the guy literally almost died, and he ended up in a jail cell. And she listens, and she doesn't judge, and she tells him that like maybe it wasn't his fault, and she thinks that they might have been sabotaged. So she tells him that she hired a private investigator to just kind of look at the scene, and like most of the servers had already cleaned up pretty much the whole kitchen, but the private investigator did find a single strip of like foil, and it had a very distinctive blue like line on it, and that blue is like very distinctive. And this company went through like a court case to have like to own that shade of blue, and that company was for laxatives. And it being laxatives makes a lot of sense because the symptoms of the laxatives were very similar to food poisoning. And after those news, Sebastian is like really relieved and calms down, and then they just like chill and they order pizza and stuff like that. And Maya gets a phone call from the private investigator, and he confirms that it was the laxative packaging. So now they know that they have like an enemy and they need to take him down. But she thought that the private investigator wouldn't be super fast to work, and they needed to get this enemy out as soon as possible. So she has an idea to work with somebody, but that person uses maybe not the most legal resources to get his information, but he gets the right information super quick. And that person is Christian Harper. Yes! AKA the guy from Twisted Lies. So now it's 2 weeks after that incident, and Sebastian and his father are having dinner at a very high profile restaurant with Charles Whitaker of Whitaker Farms. And before anything is said, they order drinks, appetizers, and Sebastian is like looking at his phone every 5 minutes to get like a message. And then he got the text, and then he signals to his father that it's go time. And Sebastian slides a folder over to Charles, and he has like a little smug face, but his smug face quickly disappears when he opens and finds the contents of this folder. And he's like, oh, what's the meaning of this? And Sebastian's like, well, good questions. We'll let our partners declare that. And right as he says that, Maya and her father walk into the restaurant and sit down. And inside of that folder that Sebastian gave Charles, it was everything, like every bad thing that Charles has ever done. And that included everyone who stepped foot in that kitchen that day, and who the culprit was to the laxative slip-in. And it was, drumroll please, the junior cook who took the lasagna out too early. And basically, Charles Whitaker paid this junior cook to put the laxatives in the lasagna, and in exchange he would pay off his debt. And Christian Harper also found out that Whitaker Farms was linked to a big string of corporate sabotage, including the listeria outbreak from the summer before. And it was actually not the ex-employee who tampered with the food. It was actually a security guard that Charles paid. And the group tells Charles that if he doesn't resign as CEO of Whitaker Farms, go to a conference and openly say that he sabotaged both the launch event and had the listeria outbreak, then they would release this to the public. And then he's like, well, they know what I've done either way, so it doesn't really matter. And to that, they drop another bomb. And Christian Harper is also like a hacker, and they said that Christian hacked into, well, they didn't say that he hacked, but they just said that they got information from his computer, like Whitaker's computer, and they found out that he'd done like tax evasion, customer fraud, money laundering. And they say that if he doesn't go to this conference and say everything, then they will release the actual big money crimes. And Charles is about to leave the restaurant, but before he can, Sebastian says and you will cover all expenses for our next launch event. And Charles literally has no other option but agree, and then he leaves. And then Maya's dad is about to leave as well, but before he can, Sebastian's dad stops him and is like, I have something to tell you all. And he says that the reason why he took that meeting with Whitaker months ago was because Whitaker had information about Martin Welgrew and what happened. So he came to that meeting and he soon realized that it was a trap, and Charles would only give Sebastian's dad the information if he would give inside information about Sing Foods, and he obviously said no. And then he also says that he actually hired a private investigator to try to find out what happened and look into the Martin Welgrew case. And he found out that it was not a death from epileptic shock from a peanut allergy, but he was actually poisoned. And he didn't know who poisoned him because the person covered their tracks really well. And we know that it was probably most definitely Roman Davenport and we know that from King of Envy. So that mystery is solved. Only took 3 books to find out. Sebastian is so excited and so relieved to find out that he wasn't the reason why Martin Welgrew died, because that's been a big burden on his shoulders for years. And then Maya's dad was like, why didn't you just tell me? I would have understood. And then Sebastian's dad is like, oh, I just wanted to be sure, and like I just wanted to be sure, and I wanted to make sure that Whitaker wasn't lying. And then their fathers make up. Whew! The following Monday, Charles Whitaker went to the conference and admitted everything that he did, and then he fled New York, and his stocks plummeted, and Sing Foods grossed like never before. Now it's the end of July, and it's the second launch event, and everything's going perfectly. They invited everybody back within the first launch event, and it was a lot more low-key. It was a lot more intimate, so there's only the people that they invited first, and then their families, and it took place at the Vault. Everything went great, no problems, and then the event ends, and they ask their families to stay a bit longer because they're gonna tell them that they are dating. And Maya was about to give everyone like a whole speech, but she just ended up telling them really bluntly, and she was like, yeah, we're dating. And everyone was like really confused, and it wasn't until Sebastian like put his arm around her that it like sank in, and they like finally accepted it, and like Maya's mom started like crying. And then everybody congratulated them, and they also told Maya's parents that now that they were dating, they kind of just wanted to go at their own pace and not get engaged by November, and they fully accepted it. Then like a month later, they're clearing out their shared office at Sing Foods headquarters, and since the launch event went so well, Sebastian made it to pro chef, which is amazing, and they're just kind of talking about like what Sebastian will do next. And he says that he wants to like open his own restaurant. Then she tells him that she's been thinking about the letter mystery, and she has a theory about what happened. And she's like, oh, do you remember Neville Grafton? And he was like, yeah. And then she said like, oh, you were about to say something to me at graduation, but he like pulled you away, and like you never told me what you were gonna say. And Sebastian doesn't answer her, but it's like his chapter, so he knows what he's thinking. And he was about to ask her if she got the letter, and she obviously never got the letter. And then at Maya's cousin's wedding a few months ago, they were talking about Neville Grafton and then Sebastian mentioned like, oh, I think he had a crush on you. Turns out he did have a big fat crush on her, and asked her out like so many times, and it got to a point where she always rejected him, and she thought about getting like a restraining order. And then her theory was that Neville somehow like broke into her locker and took the letter and read it and forged a response, but she didn't know why he left the letter in her locker. And turns out he somehow got her locker combination, broke into her locker, because earlier he saw Sebastian slip the letter in her locker. He got it, read it, and like he saw Maya walking in, so he like quickly like put it in her social studies folder, closed locker, and left. And then we do a 14-month time jump, and it's the grand opening of Sebastian's new restaurant. And like everybody's there, all their friends, all their family, and including Killian, who seems a bit more grumpy than usual, and he gets even more grumpy when a redhead walks in with a real estate developer. And then Sebastian noticed this but doesn't like press further, and it's fucking Tate. And we know that Killian is the king of lust. Continue your king of sin journey with Killian and Tate's story. So we know the girl. We get a little introduction of the girlie, and then everything's going great. And they're about to eat dessert, and then Sebastian tells one of the waiters to give Maya a note, and on the note it said like, don't eat dessert because I want to enjoy it with you like after everybody leaves. And then everybody leaves, and then it's just Sebastian and Maya alone at a table, and one of the servers comes out with a platter with the dessert, and on the middle of the platter there's a note that says, "Will you marry me?" And when Maya like looked down from the note, like he was on one knee with like a diamond in his hand, like and then he asked her and she said yes. And they get married 15 months later, and two ceremonies, one like traditional wedding one with the reception in France, and another one in India with like a whole week of activities. And they both accomplished their dreams. Like Sebastian opened a restaurant, had 1 Michelin star and more on the way, and Maya got into the World Marketing Association's Hall of Fame. So they both got their dreams, and then the book is just over. Like, oh my god, like this book is so freaking good. Like, I don't know, this might be my new favorite out of the King of Sin series. I don't know. After I do like a video on all of the King of Sin series, I should probably rank them. Right now, King of Greed is still my favorite, but this is a close second. But thank you so much for watching. This one is hopefully gonna be shorter than the King of Envy video. I'm so thankful for you, and I hope that I'll see you next time. Bye!